Hey Alexis, I heard you were in the city, so I wanted to bombard you with 21 questions. Do you have some time?
Let's go for it, let's do it.
Awesome. Okay, so let me get right into it. So tell us, what type of photographer are you?
I'm a commercial and advertising photographer, and I also direct too.
Very cool. And so what got you started in photography?
I've always had an interest in photography and in visuals and the arts. I just never took a photo class in high school because all my friends that I asked how they liked their photo classes, they all said, oh man, it's a ton of work, and they strayed me from taking the classes, and unfortunately I listened to them, but thankfully in college I was a graphic design major, and graphic design overlaps a lot with photography, so I ended up taking the photo class. I absolutely loved it and dove into it head first.
Yeah, that's the way to do it. And so sports has been really affected by the pandemic. Were you personally affected at all?
Oh, it affected me personally greatly because my work pretty much came down to a halt. Not only that, but I also couldn't work out and go to the gym, which is a part of my regular routine that I like to do. But I just did my best in staying creative, staying shooting as much as I could, even if it was just trying product photography, in my home with a product or doing still life. I kept myself shooting and kept myself, going outdoors, going out for a walk as much as I could, and staying active and busy.
Yep, gotta stay busy. And so what was your very first camera?
My first camera was the Canon Rebel, I believe it was the original Rebel, the 300D. It was a 6.3, 6.4 megapixel camera.
And so tell me, what is your go-to camera and lens now?
My current go-to setup right now is the Canon 5DS with the 24 to 105 lens. I absolutely love that combination. I light a majority of my work, so I'm generally on f11 or f16, and that lens gives me a wide focal length and it lets me be real mobile and real fast.
Cool. And so what drew you to portrait photography specifically, and athletes as well?
What drew me to portraits is all the amazing people I get to meet and I get to know, and I get to find out about their stories and hear where they're from. And athletes, I kind of just fell into that. I'm not really a sports fan, but I ended up shooting a lot of sports because it's kind of what I had access to when I first started. I started off shooting my brother playing Little League.
Cool. And you seem to really use a lot of colors and lighting in your photography style. How did you come to master your style?
Well, I don't know if I master my style. I'm always a work in progress and trying to improve and trying to learn as much as I can. But I always loved, like I said, things that were highly, visual. And the way I started out was I studied in school. I started art, graphic design, and art history, and also studied photography formally. But ultimately, the way I learned was just like buying four to five lights, and then practicing and shooting as much as I could. Even if I didn't have a subject or a talent, I would put the camera on a tripod on a timer, and I would test the lighting on myself.
Awesome. And so you've done a lot of off the court and off the field photo shoots with your portrait photography. Have you ever wanted to dabble, or have you dabbled in live sports photography?
I have shot live sports photography. I've covered NFL games, basketball, and then also boxing, which is amazing. I absolutely love the energy and feel. It's completely different than doing a produced shoot.
Your images really are a work of art. Where do you get your inspiration from?
Oh, thank you. Well, I draw my inspiration from the talent and whoever I'm photographing. One of the things I always try to work on is to be present and be aware and pay full attention to the talent I'm photographing, and just be aware of their gestures, their mannerisms, the way they are, the way they speak, the way they dress. And I try to visually represent how they emotionally impact me.
And what about inspiration from other photographers, cinematographers, or lighting professionals?
I would say when I try to find inspiration or learn the most about lighting, I tend to look for cinematographers. And two in particular that I look to a lot, which are complete opposites, which I always love learning from people that have kind of opposing philosophies. One of them is Roger Deakins, and the other one is Janusz Kaminski, which are two amazing Academy Award-winning cinematographers. And they have different philosophies, and I love studying and seeing what they do, or any video that they have or interview that they do. I try to soak it up as much as I can.
And you don't just shoot photography, you also shoot video and direct. Tell me about your video projects.
I've been writing and directing a lot of short films and telling people stories, which is something I absolutely love doing. It's completely, a much bigger challenge than photography because there's so much more you got to telling the story. You got the sound design, the camera movement, the lighting, and the music and everything. So it's something certainly talented that I absolutely love.
That's awesome. And so do you have any projects you're working on or coming up?
Yeah, I have a project I've been working on for the past three to 4 years with principal ballet dancers, and I'm actually putting the collection of those images into my first photography book, which I'm super excited about.
Amazing. I love that about the book. And so switching it up a little bit, what are some tips for somebody looking to start a career in working with athletes?
I would say know what you want and be respectful of their time, also their energy too. Whenever I work with an athlete, I try to be as efficient as possible and get it whatever we got to get done in as little takes as we can.
That's great advice and super helpful. And so what has been one of the coolest shoots you've ever done?
I'd say the coolest shoot I've been really fortunate to be part of was when I got to shoot 5 covers for Sports Illustrated with the U.S. Women's National Soccer Team. They were absolutely a dream to work with, and that shoot was a blast.
Hell yeah, that's awesome. And what has been one of the most challenging shoots?
The most challenging shoot I've done was my first cover for Sports Illustrated, and that was with the U.S. Men's National Soccer Team. And that was really challenging because I only had 1 minute with each player. It was also outdoors. They didn't tell me where I was going to be. I ended up being in the middle of the men's locker room and the bathroom because that was the most convenient place to be. And again, I was overly ambitious in that shoot. Despite only having 1 minute with each player, I was trying to do 4 to 5 different setups, and that was really challenging.
Wow, that sounds crazy. And so has there been a sport that you want to photograph that you haven't actually been able to before?
No, there isn't. I've been fortunate enough to photograph all the sports that I wanted to photograph. I mean, there are events that I haven't photographed. For example, the Super Bowl, it'd be amazing to be part of that, and the Olympics too. So that's something hopefully that could happen sometime in the future.
Wow, yeah, that would be very awesome, and let's manifest it. And so, since we haven't been able to travel too much, where is the first place you want to go once things go back to normal again?
I'm heading to actually LA. I have a few shoots pending there, and then after that I'll probably go back to New York. Last year was the first time I would say in over a decade that I haven't been to New York. I usually go there at least once a year to make the rounds, show my work, and do a few shoots.
Yeah, make sure you head to B&H when you're in New York. And so, is there a bucket list athlete you'd like to photograph?
Yeah, I would say probably Tom Brady. He's the GOAT. It'd be amazing to photograph him before he retires. He's done a lot of amazing stuff, but there's bucket list people, not just athletes, that I love to work with. I'd really love to work with Kanye West. And then as far as actors go, I'd love to photograph Clint Eastwood and work with him. And then also like Rihanna and Lady Gaga. Those will all be amazing people that I'd love to photograph.
Wow, yeah, that would be very awesome. And so if you weren't a photographer, what would you be?
I don't know if this would count, but I would say probably a director, in kind of or cinematographer.
And so what has been the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Keep it simple, have fun, and don't F it up.
Perfect, short and sweet. And so aside from your camera, what's your favorite piece of gear?
I would say my lights. I love my Profoto B1s. And then also my tether shoot station. I have that one with a ViewSonic 30-inch monitor, which is amazing when I could use it and shoot tethered. And we go over the images with the talent, and it gets them really excited seeing the results.
Perfect, yes. And if there were to be a movie about your life, who would play you?
It'd be awesome to see Diego Luna play me. It'd be really interesting to see how he would portray me. Great actor.
Cool. And who should we interview next?
I would say Tommy Garcia. He's an amazing advertising photographer in LA. Actually, I have a few people I recommend. Al Bello, New York. He's a good friend of mine, amazing person, amazing photographer. And then here in the Bay Area, Ezra Shaw, another Getty photographer. And then I would say Brad Smith. He's a non-photographer, he's an editor, amazing editor. He's the one who hired me to do the covers for Sports Illustrated.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for answering all of my questions. I'll let you get back to it, and see ya.
Thank you for having me. Take care.